So St. Paul, when he goes up on the Mount of the Areopagus, gives us a very, very fascinating case study as modern Christians of how to deal with and to work with the mighty intellectual spheres of knowledge of our own day. Okay, and so what we find in this story in Athens, where St. Paul goes to the Areopagus, is we find him engaging with the schools of Greek philosophy of the ancient world, notably the Stoics and the Epicureans. And I want to talk about in this video how they line up with modern day worldviews, and then how St. Paul argues for the superiority of the Christian worldview over and above those two philosophical frameworks, okay? And I also want to look at, again, how he engages on their own terms with Greek philosophical concepts to push forward the gospel. Now, real quick, if you like the contents in this channel, keep in mind a subscription can really, really help us. We're on the way to 200, and hopefully soon we'll be on our way to 1,000. But just keep in mind, I want to give a plug. If you like this content, keep in mind a sub can really help. Okay, so the two ancient schools of philosophy that were most prominent in Athens at the time were the Stoics and the Epicureans. Okay, the Stoics you can basically think of as ancient pantheists, where they would just say the whole cosmos is God, okay? And then the Epicureans would say that God created the cosmos, but then he was distant and didn't really interact, okay? Now, obviously, both of those are false. What he argues for is what the Christians have always said is a superior philosophical complex, which is that God exists outside of space and time, so it's not pantheism. But so he creates space and time, but then he also intimately interacts with and cares with the space-time cosmos, okay? And this is the Jewish and the Christian paradigm. It's also the Muslim one. But in this case, I'm obviously going to be looking at the Christian perspective, as I believe it's true, okay? So he's arguing here for this notion of space and time being superior to both pantheism and deism, okay? The Epicureans are kind of like ancient deists, okay? So he's arguing for a Christian concept of space and time and a God who interacts within it, okay? Now, also what's interesting is he sees an altar to an unknown God and he says, you see this? This is actually Yahweh. And he uses their philosophical concepts to reason to God from these concepts into this notion of the monotheistic reality that even Aristotle or Plato could have pointed to. So again, he uses their own concepts, reasons to it, so he's using the spheres of knowledge of the day to argue for the biblical conception of the one who simply is, okay? And then argues ultimately for the triune God, which is the most beautiful concept of God you could ever have, the God who is love in and of himself. Now, if you like this content, keep in mind I actually have a full-length video on this. You can check this out on my channel. But yeah, God bless, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.